Hello everyone and welcome back to Deansbury Town. My name's Liam and in this video I'll be telling you how I've finished detailing Deansbury Works. I hope you enjoy. So in the previous video I descended into madness by deciding to hand make all of the letters for the Deansbury Works sign. Here I am continuing to paint the letters and I'm pretty sure no one wants to watch that, and I'm also pretty sure no one wants to watch me stick them all on the sign. With all the letters in place, the border was added onto the sign and I'm really pleased with the result. It does give quite a nice 3D effect to the sign, which I think was just about worth the effort I put into it. What do you think? Have I completely wasted my time or was it worth the effort? Let me know in the comments below. Deansbury Works building is the first building that I've fitted working lights to on the layout. I've not filmed me doing this as it did involve a lot of head scratching and not a lot of progress. But I did get the lights working, as you'll see at the end of the video. So this is the back of the main building. In this area we've got one LED here and another one at this end. And they're fed down through these wires here, which will come out the bottom. On the middle floor we've got one here, and then these wires come out the bottom. They've got resistors soldered here. The top two are fed off a single resistor, and then this middle one is also fed off a single resistor. I'll get those plugged in a minute and see how they look. I was keen to try and keep the wires out of the view through the windows, so I had a slight change of method for the other lights on the lower floor. What I've done with those is I've actually kind of just poked them through the back wall of the building here, and then soldered them to these copper strips with a resistor down the bottom under here, and then these two wires will also come through the bottom of the baseboard. So kind of making it up as I go along, learning what works, what doesn't work. We'll see how they look, because these two lights here actually coincide with almost the windowless sections of here. You should see the glow from the lights, but not directly the lights themselves. So that's the lights. What we've also managed to do on the other back here is to glue the what would be the front doors effectively leading out onto the road in position. So once that's in place there, from that angle there, you can see kind of the gates that would be going onto the main road. Before carrying on with the detailing of the front of the building, I glued the backs in position and secured the wiring ready for fitment to the baseboard later on. The outbuilding at the back of the works is a really simple structure, 4 walls covered in wraps. The front wall, or the rearmost wall if you like, is constructed of 2 skins sandwiched together with a channel cut out for the wiring of the LED lights. The inside one here gets covered in an inside wrap with the gutterings sticking out a little bit to give it some relief and hide the join between the 2 faces, and then the outer wall gets the outer facing bricks. By using 2 layers to form the outer wall, I could cut a channel in one, and that allowed me to hide the wiring I was going to use for the LED lights. The external light here is a swan neck lamp. I got this from Kites Lights. It's incredibly fine and has got the most thin wire I've ever seen coming off the back, so nice and delicate to fit this. So here's the wiring of the LED running down the inside of the front face. The inline resistors, I soldered these in and covered them with heat shrink to protect them, and there's the finished light in situ on the wall with the door in place. Using some nice right angle clamps from Scale Model Scenery, I constructed the building, holding it in place, getting it nice and square and level. The next job was to tile the roof. Here I'm using scale model scenery laser cut tiles. I prime the sheet with spray can primer and then cut each strip out and glue on using plenty of PVA glue. The tiles do tend to lift up when they're wet, but I've always found they flatten down themselves as the glue dries. Once the tiles are fully dry, flip the sheet over and then trim off the overhangs with a sharp blade. The tiled roof is then glued onto the building, again using PVA glue. With a generous coat of PVA around all the edges, the roof can then be pressed into position and held firmly until the glue has taken. Once this is set, ridge tiles are then added using a scored strip of primed card, further scored to mark each tile. And if you haven't worked out how this is attached, then you need to go back to the start and watch the video again. Once that whole lot is set, it's now time to move on to the painting. Here I'm using a mixture of black, white, burnt umber and Payne's grey acrylic paints. But the colours are really not that important, it's the overall effect I'm going for. These are mixed up crudely in the mixing palette, and then I sort of add further mixes as I go on to the roof to add some variety to the colour. While the paint is still wet, add small flecks of colour, the whites and the browns for accent, and these can be blended down to give streaking effects on the roof. And this also helps to build up some texture on the tiles. Here I'm carefully painting the exposed edges of the tiles just to blend these in nicely as well. By the time I got to this edge of the roof above the gutter, I switched brushes, realising that a detail brush made for the job was going to give me far better results than a very badly damaged, not very flat brush anymore. So just touching in the edge of the gutter before we move on to stippling on some more of the white and brushing this down while the paint is still wet. This helps to give some nice blended weathered streaking effects to the roof. I find this technique really quite effective and brings the roofs to life. Because the paint underneath is still wet, if you do make a mistake or put too much on here, it's fairly easy to just get some more of the grey paint and cover over your mistakes and start again. Once you've achieved the desired effect on the first side, it's time to move on to the second side. The reason I do this separately is to keep the paint nice and wet as I'm working, as I find this helps to blend in the layers more effectively. And here's the finished roof. I really do like this painted effect, and I think the texture really helps to bring the building to life. To attach the outbuilding to the main works, I use contact adhesive. This gives a really instant bond and holds things in place nice and strong. And here's the completed outbuilding now attached to the main works building. I'm experimenting here with the base of a chimney. This hasn't progressed very far, so will be subject to a future video. Next job was to apply some flashing to the join between the tiles of the outbuilding and the main building. I made this from some very thin sheets of tissue paper, but I cut the strips to about 3 or 4 mil wide, and then tried to score down the middle to give them a fold, before then applying a bed of PVA glue along both sides of the join, and then gently pressing the tissue paper into place. This actually worked really well. It sort of soaked it and let it shape to the ridges of the tiles, and then once this was dry, I painted it with some metallic enamel paint to give it that sort of lead flashing effect. And then with a generous application of PVA, time to add the Deansbury Works sign. This was fitted nice and square in the marked out area that I'd printed and added on using Inkscape. And here's the final sign. So moving on with the detailing, the next job was to add the guttering. These were made with thin strips of card wrapped in a weathered black wrap to give the appearance of the gutters. These were trimmed to suit, and then again using PVA glue and with the aid of a straight edge to help ensure they were vertical, the gutters were added on. I chose to put these at kind of 1/4 and 3/4 positions to break up the building rather than putting them on the ends. This is a feature I'd seen on the buildings that influenced me from the Stoke-on-Trent area. To finish the gutters, hoppers are added at the top of each. Continuing on with the details, we now have the roof parapet capping and the first floor lintel. Both of these were made from lintels taken from various scale scenes kits and wrapped around The capping strips were then dry fitted, trimmed to length and then attached using PVA glue. And here we have the completed Deansbury works. This is as far as I want to take this building at this stage. I'm really happy with how it's come out. This is the first proper scratch build I've done from start to finish. It's designed in Inkscape, imported various scale scenes textured which were manipulated to give me all the accuracy of the cutouts. It's also the first building I've fitted lights to, and again I'm very pleased how this has turned out. Well, that brings us to the end of this video. I do hope you've enjoyed watching it. I certainly enjoyed making the video and the building itself. If you've got any feedback for me, please do leave them in the comments below. Here's a link to the first part of this video, and please do consider subscribing to my channel. See you in a future video. Bye for now.